Somebody's looking for somebody. Sounds like police.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you all here. I am going to put up our PowerPoint presentation. If I can get clever with the, oh, there it is. But I got to share the screen, right? Share screen, and that's that. Okay, so there's the screen. So we prepared a little PowerPoint presentation for you tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. And we're going to start this evening by talking about economic trends, nationwide economic trends. And let's start by talking about jobs, because jobs drives everything with growth as well as recession. Last month, the economy grew 1.8 million jobs, and the expectation was 1.5 million, so it exceeded expectation. And if you want to look at the unemployment rates, the nominal unemployment rate has fallen to 10.2. It was up as high as 14.7 in April. It's a long way from the 3.5 we were in February, but you could see that there is a downward trend to nominal unemployment. We also talk these days in terms of core unemployment, which strips away furloughs and adds back permanently or discouraged workers. And that too has started a trend downward. We hope that trend continues. It's a little early to say. We've got a ways to go from the bottom of 3.7, which was in December 2019, to get back there from 5.7. But if you compare where we were in April 2010, we're much improved. Consumer spending has bounced back in many of the sectors. We're using January 1st, 2020 as a baseline, and you can see the fall off that has occurred in various sectors. The only one that didn't have a fall off was groceries, as everybody ran to the stores to stock up on toilet paper. First time in my life I saw a run on toilet paper, but there you have it, and the numbers are reflected in the graph. Apparel and general expenditures, these are consumer expenditures, have come back nicely. Healthcare fell off as a lot of the healthcare providers ceased providing routine care or preventative care, but they've opened up a bit now, and that's come back. Restaurants and hotels and then arts and entertainment still have a long way to go before they can completely rebound, and that won't happen until we have further reopening of the economy. There's been a lot of concern and press lately about a surge of foreclosures caused by the coronavirus, and it doesn't, from the items we follow, from the analysts we follow, we don't see that happening because, number one, people, if they are in financial trouble from the coronavirus, they can request a 6 or even a 12-month forbearance, and then they have to settle up with the lender at some point, but that's not for 6 to 12 months. However, you could see that the number of mortgages and active forbearances have decreased from a high of 4.8 million in May 29th, and it's come down to almost a little under 4 million. There was a projection early on that 30% of home mortgages were going to end up in foreclosure. The peak was 8.6%, and we're now at 7.4%. So what's different between where we are now and where we were in 2008? 70% of all homeowners in forbearance have at least 20% equity, which give them options. Lending standards were made tighter and more stringent. Debt to income ratios are higher. I beg your pardon, are lower than they were. This recession tends to be very sector driven, which disproportionately affects renters.
Oh, look at the camera.
So what happens in a recession? Do house prices always decrease? And the answer is no. Here are the last 5 recessions. Of course, 2008 was caused by housing and mortgages and lending malfeasance, if you will. But in 2001, it was largely a sector-caused recession in the aftermath of 9/11, where people stopped traveling and stopped going to restaurants and entertainment venues as the country kind of became not necessarily locked down, but there was a lot of concern about whether the next strike was going to happen. And it was the same basic industries that were affected this time around. I'd like to shift gears now and let's start talking about how this is all affecting the housing market. Right now, we have very strong buyer's interest in homes. The unemployment rate is 90%. The nominal employment rate is 90%. There's a big tendency to de-urbanize, as we'll see shortly. People want to move to less dense areas. Work from home has become much more widely accepted by both employers and employees. And people feel the need for more elbow room. They want to do the workouts from home. They want to work from home. They have to study from home. So they need more elbow room. At the same time, we have a scarcity of homes available for sale. Rents have increased historically, maybe flattened out during the pandemic because of various moratoriums that were put in place. But there's an expectation of future inflation because of the monetary and fiscal policies and all the money that's been put into circulation. Right now, and hopefully Fred will shed some light on this in a little bit, it's less than 3% for a 30-year fixed conventional mortgage. This has dramatically increased people's purchasing power. Underlying all this is a secular demographic shift as the baby boomers hand off to Generation X's and millennials. The oldest millennials are already 40 years old. And there's going to be an unprecedented transfer of wealth between these generations. So Realtor.com puts out a quarterly survey of why people are moving, what are they looking for in their next home, buyer survey. And in the last 2 surveys, they were looking for more interior space, more outdoor space, updated kitchen and technology. They want to move from the city to the suburbs. This next slide shows a 2-to-1 increase over showings or viewings of properties on the Move.com website, which is showing 16 and 13% increase in viewings for non-urban properties versus only 7% for urban properties. So it's definitely showing a tendency to people who have an interest in moving out of the city. And then Realtor.com has now put out what they call a housing market recovery index. They're combining 4 components: demand, supply, price, and time on market. Using a baseline of February 1, you can see that the baseline has increased from 106, which is the peak in March 7, to just about 105, which is the latest reading we have last week. So there is a surge of demand in the housing market, but not a lot of listings. Showings have increased as well. Showing time is a system we use to request showings on listings. And so this is a graph just depicting the relative week by week showings that have been requested through the showing time application. You could see it was moving up in March, and all of a sudden it fell off like a rock during the pandemic. And since May 19th, the showing activity has been very robust and largely increasing. According to Move.com, they've just had a record high of 86 million unique users in June, which broke May's record of 85 million. We haven't seen July's number yet, but it just shows you the amount of interest there is in buying a home. People want to shop for a home, can afford, because of interest rates, can afford 10% more home than they could a year ago, and which translates to nearly $32 million more in buying power. That number may have increased because since this was published by Black Knight, the interest rates have fallen a bit more. So it's definitely a great time for the buyers to buy. This is reflected in purchase applications measured by the Mortgage Bankers Association. This shows 14 straight weeks of year-over-year increases in people applying to buy for an application to purchase a loan. And you could see how it fell off in April and May, and then all of a sudden it started coming back. We're at almost the highest point since the pandemic and the close down occurred, with the exception of this one point. A lot of buyer interest, as I've said. But also we don't have a lot of listings. This is nationwide. The number of listings on the market keeps decreasing. New listings has surged up to July, fell off, and looks like it might be coming back again. So we have an imbalance between demand and supply. So Johns Burns Consulting has said, is predicting the great American move. And people want to move because they feel safer in a less urban, less dense environment. They feel they have better financial prospects, better quality of life, and personal comfort. Employers are more amenable to remote work. So there is expecting a surge in household and business relocations in the near future. So wrapping all this up, we want to see what the long-range projections of future home prices are. There's various agencies and companies that do projections of future home prices. As of the latest readings, latest data available to us, those projections are down a little bit to all the way up to 4.4%. Some of these are to year end, and some of those are 12 months out. But there's not a lot of there isn't a tremendously wide variation. We're talking about minus 1.1 to an increase of 4.4%. Of course, this is nationwide, and every region, every location could be different. And since we talked about mortgage applications and buyer demand, let me turn this over to our great friend, Fred Arnold, to fill us in a little bit about what's going on in the mortgage world. Oh, Fred.
Thanks, Bill. I hope you guys can hear me okay.
Yes. Do you need to share the screen?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
We're good. And is my picture up, or I want to make sure it's not going towards my refrigerator?
I hear you. Yeah. I don't see a refrigerator there.
Okay, good. So what's going on in the real estate market? It's it's absolutely amazing. And I'm sure you touched upon this. And when interest rates hit an all-time low, I've been doing this for 29 years. And when they hit 2.625 on a 30-year fixed, 0 points, and in some cases 2.5% 30-year fixed, you're going to look like a genius buying a house or refinancing now with these historically low interest rates, because when the economy picks up and rates are 4.5%, 5.5%, God forbid 6%, your cost of funds and your cost of housing is going to stay fixed. And even if you decided to move in the future, you can keep that as a rental, and quite an amazing rental, because it'll cash flow so well. So, you know, my biggest belief is it's a great time because interest rates have been driven so low. So let's talk about what's going on with interest rates. We do believe the Federal Reserve is going to, the FHFA is going to raise interest rates about 0.25% in about a month and a half. We'll see that in maybe 2 months. The reason why is they're going to they're going to have a surcharge on refinance interest rates, which is going to drive up the price of all loans just a little bit. And that'll probably happen sometime by October 1st. But other than that, the Federal Reserve is pumping $100 million a month into mortgage-backed securities. What does that mean? Is what they're doing is they're doing what's called yield curve control. I'm trying to remember the exact name, yield curve control. And what that means is they're going to buy up all the mortgage-backed securities to what they have to do to keep interest rates within this range for the foreseeable future, at least until after the election, until we see what happens there. For several reasons. One is they want to make sure that they keep the money supply going, money flowing, number one. Number two, inflation is so low, they can do this. They can pump money into the market and keep interest rates low, which is critical. And number three, I think they're really trying to prop up the stock market, because I have no idea why it's been on a tear when most businesses are reporting some real big challenges. So they're really supporting it. So we're going to see, at least through the end of the year, well, at least through the election, low interest rates in the range they're at now. Now let's talk about qualifying for a loan. That's a little bit different story. The biggest problem lenders are having right now is volume. There's so many loans being done right now that the way the big financial institutions are controlling volume is by reducing the number of loans or even risky loans they do. And let me give you an example. If you went into Chase today and tried to do a jumbo loan, a loan above $765,000, and that's not that big out here in Southern California, and tried to take cash out, they won't even do it. They, as of a couple months ago, they didn't even want that loan. Some companies have stopped doing refinances altogether, and some can't close for 45 days on a purchase and about 90 days on a refinance because of volume. So that's one of our biggest challenges. And the reason why volume is a problem is because when you have all this many loans, you lock them in and guarantee the rate, but you got to be able to get them closed on time. So that's the number one challenge. So the best number one recommendation is, if you're going to buy, get pre-approved, because once you have all your data in to our firm or a firm like ours, we can get a loan closed in 25 or 26 days. The other thing I want to talk about when it comes to financing, and Phil preaches this like you wouldn't, Phil and Joey preach this, and it's really important to understand. Get approved by a local lender to wherever you're going to be buying a house. So what I mean by local is someone that doesn't play on the internet, and that's where they drive all their leads. Because a listing agent is probably not going to accept a pre-approval letter from somebody that has one online, because they don't know and they can't trust the reliability of that transaction closing. One of the biggest things Phil and I do is we'll team up and call the listing agent, and we'll make sure that lending is not the issue at all, and let them know, because they're going to actually, the listing agent wants to know, one, you're qualified, but two, can your lender get the deal closed, which is very, very important. Something Phil and I team up to do that. So let's talk about the qualifications. They're the same qualifications as they've been for years, but they're verifying your employment up front, we're verifying your employment when your loan's approved, and we verify your employment the day you close to make sure your hours haven't been reduced because of COVID, or you haven't lost your job because of COVID. And so that's the one extra thing they're doing. If you're self-employed, they're still doing the loan and looking at your tax returns from 2 years ago, but they want you to substantiate your cash flow. So are you still receiving deposits from your business? That's something they hadn't done in the past. Now they're asking for business bank statements. If you're working for a typical W-2 lender, you're going to be fine. If you got a reduction in salary, that's okay. We just use that, whatever that reduction is. And if you had a reduction in salary, but now you're back to full-time, we can use your full employment if you're W-2. The only challenge that we are really facing in Southern California is how are we going to handle all those in the entertainment business that go back part-time? And from what we understand, if you go back part-time, we're going to use what your current income is, as long as it's not lower than, or as long as it's not higher than the previous 2 years. So they'll either take your new earnings working, let's say limited hours in the entertainment business, or previous years, whichever is lower. So that's the one kind of variable we're not sure about. I do want to share one thing with you, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Phil, and that is credit is everything. Credit's the most important thing. And if you're not sure, come see us, because you might have a medical collection. You went in and got a surgery done. I knocked my teeth out riding my bicycle a couple years ago, and I had to have surgery, and then I had the AMR transportation, all that nonsense, right? Well, they threatened to put a collection on my credit of $1,000 to go like 2 miles in the ambulance. And if I hadn't paid it or gotten squared away, it would have been a collection. Well, if I was buying a house or refinancing, I don't have to pay it, but it absolutely destroys your credit score. And credit score is everything when it comes to the price of a loan. So you want to make sure you come see us or a reputable lender, get a copy of your credit, make sure there's no collections on there or something you don't know about. And last but not least, Phil, and I always say last but not least, and then I share something else. If you're in forbearance or you know somebody that's in forbearance, you got to come out of forbearance in order to get a Fannie Freddie loan in most cases. So that means you got to pay the amount you owe in full, or if you get a modification of some type, or they add the payments to the back of the loan, you've had to have made your payment on time for 3 months. So financing has changed. It's gotten a little bit tighter, but a reputable lender will be able to really navigate those waters, if you will, and get you into a home and be able to take advantage of probably, in my 29 years, the best interest rates and the hottest market I've ever seen. So Phil, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and I'm here if there's any questions.
Well, I did have a question, Fred. So if you get a loan for 3% now, and in 2-3 years, I see Connie McCoy's on the call, and she's a commercial banker, so she is intimately familiar with this. But we start getting inflation, interest rates go up to 6, 7, 8%. What is that? How does that impact the person who has a 3% mortgage if the going mortgages are 6 and 8%?
If you're talking about the interest rate on your mortgage is 3% and you get it now, and rates go up to 5 or 6%, well, your rate's going to be fixed, right?
Right.
So you don't have to worry about it going up. What it's going to do is it's going to make your home more valuable to keep. And the reason why I say that is as rents go up and interest rates go up, having that, fixed payment at 3% ends up being gold. It ends up driving the value of your home because of, they call it cap rates, or they call it, what is your debt service on that particular home relative to the amount of rent you can collect for. In this case, it's really simple. As a homeowner, you could be a landlord, if you will, but rents are going to go up, but your interest rate's going to stay the same. So your home becomes much more valuable to keep.
Exactly.
And so if that's what you're referring to,
Yep.
if you're referring to 3% down, and you can do 3.5, and then 5% down, as long as you don't do an FHA loan, you can actually get rid of the mortgage insurance in the future,
Right.
Thus freeing up cash flow. So we're seeing, Phil, a lot of people put 5% down, and when they put 5% down, it really allows for you to remove the mortgage insurance in 3 or 4 years. So I'm sorry, guys. We pick them up. One dog walked in, and so the other one starts barking. So, so anyhow, that's the one thing you have to look at is if you put 5% down, not a problem. You can get rid of the mortgage insurance in a couple of years and keep that 3% interest rate, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions before we go on? Just raise your hand. There's a way to, okay,
I just
Connie,
have
go
a
ahead.
question. I know rates are really low, Fred, but are you finding that some people are getting just interest-only mortgage loans? Is that something they can even do? Is that happening because the rates are so good right now?
I haven't done an interest-only loan in 7 or 8 years.
Oh,
I
you
know
haven't
they're
done it. Okay.
I know they're available, but
Yeah.
they're typically priced a quarter to 3/8 higher than a 30-year fixed. And
Okay.
interest-only loans became synonymous, even though they're not, with subprime. I'm refinancing someone out of an interest-only loan, and it stays fixed for 7 years. Then it turns into a fully payable loan. And
Mhm.
so it's a good for the right person, for a sophisticated borrower. That's okay because they can
Right.
save on their cash flow. But typically, they're not as readily available as a Fannie Freddie loan, either to 500.
You're muted. Fred, you got muted.
You're muted.
There you go.
Okay. Is he?
Okay. Fred, was there anything else?
No. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on the call? They want to ask Fred anything? Okay,
Well,
let's
while
go
Fred's
on.
with us, I just want to say, hey, Fred, you're right on with the, we'll rent it, keep it, and buy something else.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, we're gonna move. We're gonna move on.
If you do that now, you're going to be a genius. I tell
Right.
you what.
Right. Right. 5 years from now, it's going to be a whole different world. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Joey, who's going to be talking about how COVID-19 has impacted the process of buying and selling a home.
Okay, I will be pretty brief. So as you may guess, that the way we buy and sell properties now has changed a little bit. A lot less contact. So one of the first things that has been impacted is we've received guidelines that we're not supposed to be doing in-person open houses. There's a partial reason. I'll go into that in a minute. So instead, we're doing virtual open houses, which is not quite the same thing, but you are allowed to post for a virtual open house on the MLS. And we just stream it live, and hopefully if people have questions, they can respond while we're walking them through the house. Another way we're doing that is something we've already been doing is on most properties, we utilize a thing called a Matterport tour. And what that is a true 3D virtual tour that lets you walk through the home like Google Street View. So going on to the Corona advisory for the all entrants and occupants for a property, this is one of the things that's changed. Now to view a home, everyone must sign this form so that it shows them the things that can go wrong and what you should be doing and how to stay protected and so forth. That's one of the reasons why we're not doing open houses as we're not supposed to, is because every single person would have to have that signed ahead of time. And then for when we have buyers or people who want to view properties, we are required to do PPE, and that includes gloves, mask, and hand sanitizer. So if you, we can help provide that for our clients if they don't have it. And we're not supposed to be really touching anything. So when we walk into a home, we ask buyers not to open any cabinets or open any doors. And ideally that the sellers, before they leave, they open up some of the cabinets and they keep all the doors open so that the only doors that should need to be open are the front door and the door to the back area, like backyard or patio. And then we also have to post rules on the doors. So just to kind of, a lot of, just hitting people over the head. This is what you should be doing to stay protected and protect others. And these are, so you might see these on a door, and that usually means that the home has been listed. And just overall, guidelines and trying to be safe and cautious.
Would you like to talk a little bit about the stylish mask you designed, Joey?
Well, I designed through my guidelines of what I was looking for.
Okay, so anybody wants masks, we got plenty of masks, and we also have matching hand sanitizers. Just let us know, we'll give you a few. But they're very stylish. You can wear them with pride. They have a little happy face around them, so you can wear them with pride. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the local real estate market. Santa Clarita, what's going on in Santa Clarita? We touched on this earlier, but rents have gone up steadily since the first quarter of 2010. They've gone from about $1,300 a month on average, and these are apartments, to about $1,950. So that's, what is that? About 50% increase over 10 years. Flattened out a bit this year, and we're going to have to see what happens with the coronavirus. But there is a legitimate housing shortage throughout Los Angeles County, and there is no rent control per se in Santa Clarita Valley other than at the state level. So we would expect to see rents to continue to go up. And this is a fundamental reason why people who are first-time buyers, they want to buy. We do have some relief on the listing shortage, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. There is a listing shortage in existing homes, but we have 35,000, almost 36,000 new residential units on the drawing boards or under construction. UC is under construction in the Santa Clarita Valley. And this breaks it down. 7,250 are under construction, 4,500 are approved but not yet under construction, and the other 24,000 units are on the drawing board. Most of those, of course, are in the Newhall Ranch development, which is now being called Valencia. They've changed the name. Here's a list of the new residential property projects within the city of Santa Clarita. I'm not going to read these off, but I'm happy to provide these to you. This came from this Economic Development Corporation, which is going to have their annual economic update meeting on September 17th, I believe it is. I encourage those of you who are really interested, I encourage you to attend this. It's always packed full of really good information. But this came out of the book that they're going to be handing out at that meeting. It's a Zoom meeting, but it's going to accompany the meeting. So there's only 2 under construction, Aliento, which is single family homes, and this Lennar Homes, River Village, that's also known as the Concord development. But Santa Clarita Valley includes unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County and the city of Santa Clarita. So if you go to the unincorporated areas, there's several more tracks under various stages of approval and under construction. Skyline Ranch is pretty new, 1,000 units, senior units and single family homes, and that's under construction. And Canyon Heights is another Lennar community, and that is under construction. New homes, new housing is going to have a profound impact on the housing availability in the Santa Clarita Valley in the coming years. If you look at this chart, this gives you a history of new permits going back to 2014. And you can see all the way through last year, they ranged from around 1,000 to 1,200 to 1,600 last year. You have to add the Santa Clarita and the unincorporated units together. So these two numbers added together. This is the projection. They're projecting about 1,500 permits this year. And by 2025, we're looking at about 2,600, 2,700 units, which will be permitted. Considering that we closed escrow on 3,300 homes in 2019, you can see that if we add 2,700 units to the mix, that is going to give buyers a lot of flexibility and a lot of options to consider. But keep in mind that new houses, they're really great. They're brand new. You have very little in the way of maintenance for several years. They have all the latest and greatest technology and solar and all that. But you have to put in your own window covering, and if it's a single family home, you typically have to put in landscaping in the back, and most of these projects have mellow roofs that go along with it,
And high HOAs.
and high HOAs. But coming in the next few years, they will have a profound impact, new housing. So here's, I'm going to climb into the weeds a little bit with what's happening statistically in the Santa Clarita Valley. Once a month, Joey and I look at the activity. We break it down. We use a 3-month rolling average or aggregate data to do this analysis because we want to iron out any aberrations in the data. And then we break it out between attached and detached homes because a lot of detached homes are technically condos. And there's a crossover in the way they're defined in the multiple listing service. But let's start with the number of active listings. You can see active listings year over year for the last 3 months ending July have decreased 39%. Oh, hang on one second. 39%. And then if you go to July pending sales, they've kind of kept track. Surprisingly, they're only down 3.7%. So that you can look at that. Sorry for my penmanship. But they're down 3.7%. So active listings are down almost 40%, right? 37%, 39.3%. And the number of pending sales are down 3.7%. So it's kept track because people are intensely interested in buying homes. This next one is the number of closed sales. The closed sales is down 17%. So you could see it's struggling to keep track with last year because there's just such a lack of inventory on the market. Median sales price, unsurprisingly, is actually, given that data, the median sales price has actually increased 3% over last year. And anecdotally, I could tell you that if a home is properly priced, appropriately priced, and looks really good, it's going to attract multiple offers, typically over asking. And we've seen that ourselves in our business. All right, so this is the big outlier, is the median days on market. From the time a property is actively listed till the time it goes under contract, that's called days on market. And you can see that that figure has dropped by 37%. It only takes, on average, 12 days to get a home in escrow, as opposed to 19 a year ago. And actually 19 a year ago, interest rates increased a year ago, and 13 the prior year when interest rates were relatively low. So this is a metric. This is like our favorite overall metric. It's an absorption rate calculation. It's the number of months supply. It's simply you take the number of active listings at a given point in time and you divide it by the number of pending listings on average for a year. And that tells you how many months it takes you to sell every single home that's actively listed. It's mathematical. It doesn't actually happen to every single home. But you could see that this metric has fallen down lower than each of the last 2 years. It's down 39% from last year and about 25% from the year before. So this highlights the lack of inventory that we have in the existing homes. Our outlook is that this is going to normalize to some extent as sellers stop hunkering down and start deciding to move on to the next home or the next stage of life, or to upgrade or downsize, whatever else they need to do. Plus, we have all the new homes coming on board. At this point, I'd like to ask Perry if he has any insight he'd like to share with us before we conclude.
Thank you,
Perry,
Phil.
by the way, Perry is the divisional president with First American Title. He's forgotten more about real estate than most people know. He has a broad perspective of what's going on with market conditions, as well as what's hanging transactions up in escrow. Perry, thank you for joining us.
I'm fortunate to be here amongst my peers, Fred and Connie, and you, Phil. You guys have been here for a long time. Eric, I hope you're looking for more properties. But let me throw out a disclaimer. First of all, I am a vice president of First American Title. I've been working for First American and been in the title insurance industry for over 39 years. And I came from UCLA with a degree in business econ, and my skills are forecasting. And all of the guys I went to school with are running different forecasting businesses and doing fairly well. And I think I've been close, but my crystal ball is only good for 3 months. So I can tell you what's going to happen for sure to the end of the year. But into next year, it's up to Congress. It's up to the president, and it's up to our state. But right now, Phil already hit it. So did Fred. Interest rates are the lowest they've ever been in our history. Comparatively, home prices only have gone up a small percentage compared to the interest rates buying ability that you have. And so I expect housing prices to continue upward for at least the next 6 months, no matter what happens. And thank goodness Congress stepped in with the PPP program, the Payroll Protection Program. That helped a lot of businesses and employees stay employed, and businesses stayed open to a certain extent, even at a lower rate of income coming in. I expect that if Congress does nothing, then the worst case scenario is we get through the end of this year and probably into the first quarter of next year with most everyone still employed and still working, and the businesses overall should stay in business. But if nothing happens in the first quarter of next year, as far as additional aid or support to employed people, then we will see a change in the market. The great thing is, as Phil's mentioned and everyone can see, everyone has equity. There's almost nobody that I know that does not have equity if they own a house. They've had a huge increase in wealth over the past 10 years. If they've owned the house that long, and even in the last 3 years, if you bought a house 3 years ago, it's probably worth about $30,000 to $50,000 more than what you paid for it, at least that much. So I anticipate that housing prices will stay strong. And if those people decide to move to different states, or they can work remotely someplace else, or the company relocates them, they will have no problem selling the house, and they will have money to take with them and easily move to another location. But again, I forecast last October that interest rates would be under 3%, and pretty much everybody called me stupid. Never happened. And I think actually we'll see one more drop in interest rates. Won't be a big one, but as Fred hit it, I don't think it's unrealistic that any borrower and every borrower that has a job and has some savings will be able to get a 2.5% 30-year fixed loan sometime later this year or the first part of next year. And that'll be the way, again, the government helps people stay in the homes that they're in and afford it. And it will also keep our economy moving forward without having a disruption of people moving or being forced to sell. And I believe, again, later next year, probably fourth quarter, if, again, the government help and the government and company help isn't enough, then we'll start to see some companies closing their doors, and then unemployment will pick up again. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen because we do have a Congress that does listen. And eventually we'll get back into providing people aid. So my overall forecast is, again, for the next 6 months, prices up, prices up, prices up. Because the inventory has dropped to a level that's not been seen in years, we're going to see prices go up a minimum of 6 to 8% in the next 6 months. 6 to 8% in 6 months, which again, everyone says here, no, there's no way it's going to happen. Well, it's happening right now. And I see people paying, like Fred said, $15,000 more than asking. And asking was,
Sorry, I didn't
whoops.
quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
See, Siri's listening. And I didn't even touch Siri.
I'm afraid I don't know that. But you
Oh man, my computer's after me. Okay, so anyway, in the world
I
of,
didn't get that.
she's,
Try tapping above to edit.
bye Siri. Siri's still talking. But I believe that, again, people that do find themselves in trouble, they will list their homes and they'll come on the market and there will be buyers to replace them. So the marketplace should stay fairly level, but because the inventory is where it is, prices are guaranteed to go up between 6 and 8%, guaranteed. So there you go. That's kind of my quick and easy. I don't see a huge number of listings going up until later on this year. In the first quarter of next year, we'll start to see more listings come on market. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions, anybody? Just raise your hand, or Connie.
But see, this is what I don't get it. And I'm a lender, but I'm on the business side. I don't understand what's going on. I know the inventory isn't there. So, the prices are going up because there's the demand and then the rates are low, but there's so much unemployment, right? I mean, people they don't have to make their mortgage payments right now. I think you mentioned that earlier, Phil, saying, there's a,
You've got a year.
yeah, and so in a year, what's going to happen? I mean, unemployment's up. Maybe I'm just doomsday. They don't get their jobs back. There's going to be foreclosures. I know that you just said that there's going to Perry, that there's, there'll be a market out there. People will be ready to buy. I don't get it. I sound dumb, but I feel like it's going to go the other way. I just feel like it's going to be a mess in the market.
Well, if you look at the, if I may, Perry, if you look at the sectors in which the unemployment has occurred, these are sectors where the employees typically don't tend to be by owners. They tend to be renters. And the number of homes in foreclosure never went up above 7-8%. We touched on that earlier. Those are the ones that actually went in forbearance, I beg your pardon. So there was projected to be as much as 30%. It never came even close to that. It went up to about 8%. So, and then when you look at the people in forbearance, a good part of them are actually performing while in forbearance. They're continuing to make their payments. So they did a precaution. So, and most of them have equity. Most of them have 70%. I saw a statistic that 70% of the people who are in forbearance, this is a few weeks ago, had at least 20% equity in their homes. So,
Connie, more to your question, you're having the doomsday thing, but the president of your bank, most of your mid-range employees at most companies, they're not in trouble. They're still fully employed and they're doing well. And California has a lot of tech jobs where those people are still being paid no matter where they're working, even if it's remotely. The people that are being hurt, unfortunately, are the people that we see every day in restaurants as servers, the cooks, the people that own those restaurants, the hair salons, the nail salons,
right.
the people that do probably own a house, but they don't own 3 houses. And that's where we're seeing the unemployment, and we'll continue to unfortunately see it. And so that will have a slower effect on the overall foreclosure, forbearance, look out, here it's coming. And then the second part of that is if they do own a house, they absolutely are selling their house in the hottest market where they're going to get the highest price and they can relocate pretty much anywhere. If they leave the state, do very well. If they stay in the state, they can still rent and still do fairly well, and they'll stick around. So I don't see as much doom and gloom. I think, again, our government will take care of the basics, but maybe not for everyone.
And nobody has a crystal ball.
Yeah, no, I know.
All we could do is look at the tea leaves and come to whatever conclusions we come to. So, but that's kind of the perspective that I'm looking at and Perry's looking at. And most of the people that we follow are looking at the same perspective. Anybody else?
Also
for
another
Perry?
group of buyers, Phil.
Yeah.
The biggest group of buyers that no one talks about that I see every day and talk to every day are, let's say, nobody says, hey, what about those Israeli investors? What about the Chinese investors? Well, for a couple of years, the Chinese were the number one buyers of real estate in America,
Yeah.
bar none.
Yeah.
And they got their hair cut because they couldn't get their money out of the country, and you can only take so much out in tranches. They've been working very hard to get around all those rules, and the Chinese government's been fairly effective to stop it. But my guess is that there's an investor out there for every house that's there. And if you and I don't want to pay that much for it, an investor will.
Yep. Okay.
So for people, I just have another question. So for those people out there that are looking to invest, shall we say, buy a second or third home as a rental and are waiting for the prices to come down, I'm going to wait for the market to decline, prices to come down. That's not realistic. I mean, is
No.
from what I'm hearing you're saying. I mean, rates
Well,
are,
in 2022, you will have an opportunity, but I believe prices will drop somewhere in that range of 10 to 15% at most. If the government screws everything up, we're talking 15%. And if it just went up 15%, you're back where you are today.
okay.
Plus you're continuing to pay rent that you can never get back.
But you just don't want to get caught up in a bidding war and pay way more than the property's worth, because then you will end up possibly
Right.
losing.
Okay.
So again, be careful.
We're going to move on and wrap it up. And we can open up for more questions when we're done.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good discussion. Thank you, Connie, and thank you, Perry. This is just wrapping things up. For sellers, these are just some considerations we wanted to summarize. You're going to have, right now, if you listed your home, you're going to have minimal competition from other sellers. You can have a clear expectation of multiple showings and probably offers if the pricing is realistic and if the property is showable. You should have a game plan for relocating, how you're going to make that transition. You know how you want to counteroffer against multiple offers. And you have to understand the showing protocols from a seller's viewpoint. Buyers have a tremendous opportunity because of the low interest rates, which boosts affordability, but have to be prepared to deal with an environment of low inventory. Make sure you have really strong pre-qualification or really strong financing. A local lender is better, of course, as Fred mentioned. We offer alternative strategies for locating unlisted properties because the listings on the MLS are so low. We have a couple of strategies we help our clients with to find properties that are not on the market. And also you can consider new construction. And as a buyer, you should be very flexible in terms of accommodating your sellers' contingencies because they have to go somewhere when they move out of the house. Here is some resources that we make available. What we really like here is a smartphone app. You can text this code to 87778. It's a free geo-coded or geo-enabled app that you can open up when you're nearby a listed house with a sign. You can see exactly what they're asking for it and even send us a showing request. Every quarter, we send out a guide to buying and selling your home. So feel free to ask us when we get those over to you. I'll leave this up. I'm going to unmute everybody now if I can figure out the,
Go to the top screen.
okay, I'm going to unmute everybody. How do I do that?
Right there. Next one.
There.
Nope,
Nope. I'm trying to unmute everybody.
not participants.
Everybody could unmute themselves.
Or you can unmute yourselves. I'm not seeing the control handy, but
I think it's
feel
under
free to unmute
participants.
if you want to ask any questions or make any observations.
Well, I know I've talked too much, so.
No, Connie, go ahead.
No, I don't, I'm good right now. I'm good right now. Thank you. It's been very, very, very helpful for me.
Okay, we are putting this on Facebook Live. It's a recorded version. Will be on Facebook Live, so please feel free to share this with anybody you feel might benefit from the information. Hopefully you got something out of tonight. Joey and I really enjoyed putting the data together because it really gives you a feel for what's really happening in the real estate market.
No, it's great. It was great. Great for me. I enjoyed it.
Good. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
comments.